Safety glasses on.
So to begin, I kind of wanted to quote you.
Okay.
You said the cornerstone to any sport is video content.
Videos are the hallmark of any successful sport.
And that slapped because I used to watch a lot of skate videos back in the day, and I used to watch a lot of like drift videos back in the day. And what do you know? Skating is like an Olympic sport now. And drifting is also recognized as a sport through like Formula D and D1 and all those other drifting events. So
yeah,
I admire your content, cinematography, and your capacity to edit. You got like this whole page, and I got stuck watching your science spinning video reviews. It was tight. How did you get into recording everything, editing everything, and how much time have you put into it before you got to the point where like your videos look this tight?
That's a good question. Mainly because like I've always been into video editing, like ever since I was young. Like I remember when I was like 12 years old, that's when YouTube started to be a big thing. And even before then, like online, you'd have like viral videos like the Numa guy and like all this type of stuff. Like I remember albinoblacksheep.com and like Newgrounds and stuff, and just content creation I always thought was like super dope. And I always wanted to just kind of be a part of that ever since I was young. And like for the sign spinning part of it, I was also into skateboarding videos and stuff too. Like that's what I thought was like super dope. And when I found out sign spinning was a thing and I started doing sign spinning like seriously, that's when I found all the sign spinning videos, and I was like felt so inspired by them that I wanted to make my own sign spinning videos. And so since I was already interested in making videos, it was just kind of like a perfect fit for like just being able to share content and being able to share something that I really enjoyed doing. Yeah.
Have you been keeping up with the Olympics recently?
I've been keeping up with it. Like you said, skateboarding is an Olympic sport now, and I think that's like super dope. I remember like back in 2012 when they announced that it was going to be there, and ever since then I was like super hyped for it because that's like the original sport that I was super into, and like to see it be on that level of like it's Olympic sport now, I thought it was like super cool. But like other than that, not so much. I haven't been keeping up with it this year. Like I saw a couple clips on YouTube, but other than that, like it's kind of hard to keep up with that stuff nowadays with the decline of TV, you know, because back in like 2012, the London Olympics, I watched all that stuff on TV and we had cable, and nowadays it just seems like not many people are watching TV, and like not like they used to. Like my family, for example, we don't have cable. We just use streaming services. Like, do you feel something similar? Like, have you been able to keep up with it?
Only through the same methods that you just described. I don't really have cable either. It's everything streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
I know the song is "Video Killed the Radio Star," but it's almost like streaming has now killed. Yeah,
streaming is killing the video star, but then again, not really, because people are watching videos all the time. It's just they're not watching them on the scheduled programming. They're just more catered to what they want. Like people can just turn on anything.
That was the biggest turn on to streaming services was the freedom from network schedule. But unfortunately, from what I'm seeing, streaming services are kind of copying TV now because they're holding on to episodes, they're holding on to whole seasons and dropping
Right.
them like episode by episode. So it's almost going back to that now.
It kind of is. Like, have you noticed how all of these streaming services, like you got Netflix, Hulu, Peacock, Disney Plus, like all these different services have different shows to them. So you end up actually paying the same if you want to watch all the same stuff. It's like no different than just having regular cable.
Yeah, yeah.
It
It's kind
almost
of
defeats the purpose.
it almost reminds me of like console exclusives. You know, Halo. If you want to play Halo, you got to buy an Xbox. You want Gran Turismo, you got to buy a PlayStation.
That's right.
You want Mario, you got to get a Nintendo. And then
Mhm.
ultimately, buying all those consoles becomes quite a bit of money too.
Yeah. And like nowadays, like they have no problem porting it over to different consoles, like, which is, I think is great. Whatever game you want, you can pretty much get it on any console. It's just nowadays it does that game offer crossplay. Like I play a lot of Guilty Gear Strive right now, and a couple of my friends, they have PCs, and so they prefer to play it on PC. But I got to play it on PS4, and we're not able to play online. So it's either I get a PC or they buy a second copy just to play it with me, and it's like, we can both play it, but we got to be in person. We
Yeah,
can't.
that's weak. I thought that was a thing already, where like cross compatibility across the network would be cool, but I guess you still have to rock the same console to play with another person.
Yeah, that's the biggest hurdle that I find now. But like games like Dead by Daylight, for example, that's completely like cross-platform, so there's no issue there. But as far as like compatibility goes, that's the only real hurdle with games.
Hmm. I know we're going deep on this one, but is PUBG one of those cross compatible ones? Because I see people playing it on their cell phones, but I also
Yes,
see people playing on
I
controllers.
I want to say it is. I think that along with Fortnite is like completely cross platform. Like
Yeah.
you could have like the most badass PC setup, triple monitors everywhere, and then play next to the dude on a phone. Like I think it's like that.
See, that's a role model for game developers everywhere, as far as I'm concerned. I remember shareware games like Doom and Wolfenstein.
Mhm.
It is free. Well, the reason why I asked about the Olympics is because I was checking out how they score some of the things, and I saw some parallels between the way we judge science spinning and the way they judge Olympians, especially the gymnasts. They're
Right.
judged on the difficulty, how well they executed, and I just couldn't help but think of science spinning. So, in light of current affairs, how do you feel about live competition versus virtual competition? Like, what are the disadvantages and advantages in your mind?
So I think obviously the biggest advantage over like the biggest advantage of a virtual competition is that, well, let's say it's not live like the previous WSFC was, the virtual one that we just had. You have as many attempts as you want. I think you brought this point up on an Arrow Army at one point, is that you have as many attempts as you want. If that run was bad, you can say like, oh, forget it, I don't want that one. And then you can just keep going until you have a library of takes that you want to decide like which you want to upload. It reminds
Hmm.
me of back when we used to do the online battles, like the Arrow battles on Facebook and stuff. Back in 2015,
Wow.
2016, I would record multiple takes because I knew I was going against somebody, and I would record multiple takes and then like survey with the guys and be like, hey guys, what should I upload? Should I do this one? Should I give them this one? Like, I like this one, but this one has this trick. And for the virtual competition, it reminds me a lot of like those classic Arrow battles, which is cool, but it's totally different than a live performance, which is like high stakes. If you mess up, there's no going back. So I think
Yeah.
you have on the one hand the virtual competition, which is very cool. It's like a video submission kind of battle, but it doesn't compare to doing a live performance where you're standing in front of people and whatever happens happens. And I also think that affects the judging too, because when you watch a sign spinning video, you're getting a different impression than when the spinning is happening like directly in front of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can be a little more critical when you're watching a video too.
Yeah.
Um, so I had this idea. Uh, have you ever seen, like, are you familiar with Insomniac Events? The guys that host EDC and like Wonderland,
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
all those big raves.
Yeah.
Well, when the pandemic started, they they debuted this virtual rave-a-thon concept where instead of having everybody show up to a stage or to a venue, the DJ would be performing, but he would still be performing live, right? So
Yeah.
if he were to, drop the ball, everybody would see that live, analogous to us dropping a sign. So I was thinking, instead of submitting like your best video, I was thinking it'd be cool if we all did something similar and shared a stage. Maybe not shared a sign, because obviously we'd be like cross-contaminating and stuff.
Right.
Really about that. But
Yeah.
everybody would have their own sign, but we all share the same platform. So when it's your turn to spin, you're the only one occupying it. It doesn't violate any type of social distancing measures.
Yeah.
But the advantage, I think, is that we could still have a couple different cameras streaming it live, and each participant would still have that live experience. So dropping the sign would still be a variable in judging.
Okay.
Do you see anything wrong with that? Am I tripping? Or does that
No,
sound like it'd work?
it sounds like you're describing a spectatorless sport, like how they've been doing with football and basketball and everything.
Oh,
So
that's right.
are you talking about like get the spinners together and then they have their own signs? Because like for the skateboarding, for example, like everybody's skating their own personal board. Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't share a skateboard because that would just completely ruin what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could get the spinners together and they would have a sign that's familiar to them, and they could go out and it's their turn to perform and they just share the stage, like you said. So I think that could be a thing. Yeah, if you wanted to maintain like social distancing and all that.
In light of how we handled 2021 and seeing how Texas is approaching the virtual competition, I think we have to come to a decision on how we're going to handle not only the West Coast competition in the future, but every other one moving forward, for as long as we're, stuck in this 2 weeks to reduce the curve.
So what is their plan for Texas? I've been like following a little bit online. I saw that it was going to be somewhere in Texas, and then they switched it to be a virtual format. Like, what is the story with that right now?
I'm under the impression that maybe some regulations changed in terms of like gatherings. I'm not 100% on it though, because I know Texas has been pretty open, and even at the beginning of everything.
They're kind of free willy. They're like this. They're the
Yeah.
South, and Georgia. It's the same way. Like I go out. I'm vaccinated, so I go out and I don't wear a mask, even though I know Delta variant is becoming a thing. So I should probably wear a mask, just because there's the whole like you can still transmit or whatnot. But
Yeah.
in general, like the public opinion is just like, fuck it. If you want to wear a mask, go for it. If you don't, whatever. And people are just lax about it. So I don't know if Texas would be something like that, or, I feel like it would be similar.
I totally resonate with the idea of having the freedom of choice, like freedom of risk assessment, as to whether or not you should wear a mask.
Yeah.
My biggest fear is just passing it. It's not even like really catching it, because I think we're in the category of people that are likely to survive. I'm really just worried about passing it on to somebody else that may not be as resilient for stuff like that. But
right. And that's what kills me, is like I was under the impression at first that if you get vaccinated, then like you're totally fine, and that you don't have to worry, like you're not going to pass it, it's just going to be over, and then you get the boom boom, you're done. But we're learning that it's not the case. So it's becoming difficult to know what the right choice is to do. But and it's also hard because you don't want to tell people what to do. Like you said, people should have the choice to like have their own risk assessment, and it's just very difficult. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I just don't know. I just don't know.
That's a hard one. I was kind of hoping to be bulletproof after getting vaccinated too. But I mean, I guess if it just reduces the symptoms, that's cool too. But if I'm not mistaken, measles and polio, like if you get the vaccine for that, like you're 100% good, right?
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's a totally different animal that we're fighting now.
That's true. If it was something familiar, we wouldn't be calling it novel, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Where were you when all this first started back in? Well, I mean, I think it started in March of 2020. That's when we got officially locked.
It started in March. That's what it was. So the backstory for me is I was in Australia at the time, right? And
I started or worse.
For better. Right. Well, actually, no. The entire thing is like a downhill. But it was like in January, I was already kind of interested in China in general, just because I just think it's a fascinating country and culture. It's so different than ours. So I had just been like following Chinese YouTubers and foreigners that live in China, and they were talking about this thing called COVID-19. And that was back in January, and they were saying like it's super contagious. It's going to get everywhere. Like this may be the next great pandemic. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking like, man, that's crazy. Hope that's not real. And so 2 months later, March comes around, and we're seeing it spread outside of China into places like Europe. And I was in Sydney staying in a hostel at the time. And around mid-March, Italy, if you remember, was having like their huge problem. They were like the first country to really have an issue with this outside of China. And there were just a bunch of Italians that were also living in the hostel with me. So they were all freaking out about like, oh God, coronavirus is happening. Australia was starting to get it as well. And Sydney being a major downtown center, businesses were shutting down left and right, because they were like, we can't have this happen. Like, this is a big virus, this is a big deal. We don't know what to do. It's best just to shut down. So I'm staying in the hostel, and people around me are like losing their jobs, and they're struggling with whether or not they should stay in Australia and go to the outback, or should they go back home and risk getting COVID? What should they do? And I'm there just like working with Beth doing sign spinning, and I'm watching our clients drop off, and they're just like, we can't do this. We can't have sign spinners. And so I'm just, at that point, I was like, whoa, what do I do? Because I'm not going to have work. Everywhere's closing, and I don't want to be stuck in this foreign country, like with no money. And I definitely don't want to go out to the farms and work. Like I've been working outside. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I assessed the situation, and I booked a flight home it was like Wednesday. I booked a flight for Sunday straight to Atlanta. And I just went home within the week, because at that time, like everything was shutting down and we didn't know what to do. So I was like, let me just go home and make the next move.
Yeah.
And that was last year in March.
Did you anticipate it getting to this point where it lasts longer than a month and then longer than 3 months?
No. Oh no. I thought it was going to last until August at the latest. August, September. I was thinking, okay, I'll go home to Augusta. I'll hang out at my mom's in the suburbs, be far away from everything. And in August, September, like we'll have it under control. Everything will start reopening, and then I can get back into my life. Clearly, that's not what happened.
Man.
Here we are over a year later.
Yeah.
But, it's just, you got to roll with the punches.
You were there for the fires too, right?
Yeah. The big fires in Melbourne in Victoria that were happening. I was in Melbourne at the time, and I don't know what the cause of the wildfires were, honestly, but it was at the time when, it was like making world news and everything. And it was crazy because the fires were happening so far away from the major city, but the smoke and everything still made it in. So there were definitely days where the smog was just, you couldn't see more than like 2 miles. And I had, you know what I mean? Like I had a good view of the city skyline, like the downtown, the CBD, as they call it. I had a good view from where I was staying. And the smoke rolled in, and I just couldn't see it anymore. It was that bad.
That's wild. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy to hear that you were there for like 2 major headlines. You know what I mean?
Right. It was cool. I got to go, but it's like, man, I wish I had a better reason to like experience these things, or like had better stories. Like I wish good things happened, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's going to be something to talk about in 20 years, especially when it's like something that's discussed as part of history, and how these things affected the economy and people's lives moving forward.
Oh, I know. It feels crazy, the time we're living in, especially within the last, I would say, 5 years since 2016. Like just the amount of stuff that's been happening, it feels just like its own episode in world history. You know what I mean? And like here we are on the back end of COVID, which we could be on the back end, we could be in the middle. I don't know, but we're in the middle of this thing, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. And to think that in textbooks, it's going to say it all started with a gorilla named Harambe.
I know, right? That's what
this whole
I think that's culture. What it is, man. Yeah, meme culture. Meme culture has evolved so much.
I think it's crazy that it's one of those unique staples to our generation. Kind of like I don't know. It's just one of those. I think one of those things that you could use as a landmark in time, right? There was the advent of flight, right? And then there was space travel, and then we had cell phones, and then we had the internet, and then we had online stores, and then memes were born as a result of the internet. You know where that name comes from?
Memes?
Yeah.
No, I have no idea.
This evolutionary biologist named Richard Dawkins, he published a book back in the 80s called The Selfish Gene. And he talks about how we're just vehicles for executing the things that our genes want to do. And so certain behaviors are passed on genetically, like through genes, or even certain features, right? Like the color of your hair, your height, it's all genetic coding. But what do we define something? How do we define something that gets passed on that's not physical or tangible, something that's an idea, right? Something that's like a mind or a mental gene, an idea, I guess, for lack of a better word. The dude called it a meme instead of a gene, because obviously the G for genetics, the M for mental. I thought it was pretty crazy that it's a meme, like something that can replicate itself and then continue passing itself along. So
if that's the case, the oldest meme has got to be drawing dicks on walls.
Yeah, dude, even on statues.
Yeah, in like ancient caves and stuff, people have been doing that for as long as they've been around, and they'll continue to do it. Yeah, memes are just a continuation of that.
You know the Moai statues on Easter Island, those heads that mysteriously,
right.
The rest of their bodies like buried underground.
Yeah.
Well, I saw images of what the whole statue looks like, right? And there was emphasis, right, that they took the time to carve this dude's junk, like in the anatomically correct place on this statue, a pillar. Like all their artwork features it. They even like have this sculpture of like I think it's a cheetah. But the point I'm trying to make here is that they also really, they just took the time to make sure that this cheetah had a sizable dong on it.
Right.
It's crazy. It really is the oldest meme.
It's like unnecessary, but like it is necessary because it's part of human culture. It reminds me of my middle school, where our mascot was the Panthers, and we had a little statue of a panther in the front of the school. It's a male panther. I know that. There's no question about that. And I'm like, why? We're in the middle school. Like, what? I don't know. I guess they really wanted us to know that.
Yeah. If this wasn't a real phenomenon, it wouldn't be acknowledged in pop culture. Like there's an episode of Rick and Morty. I forgot what the dude's name was, but Jerry was expected to sacrifice his junk in order to produce I guess a heart for, I think his name was Mr. Pibbles or Peebles. I don't remember his name.
Idea. I didn't watch that show, so I don't know.
Damn, well, they make a reference in it where this alien is talking about, he's not going to give up his junk. Interesting phenomenon. It makes me wonder if those statues originally had one, or if it was the doings of a prankster, an ancient prankster.
I think it's an easy joke.
Yeah. It's a low-hanging fruit. No pun intended.
No pun intended. You know something about memes. I saw your your trophy that you got there.
Yeah, dude. All things considered, that those trophies meant a lot to me, because that dude I mentioned, Richard Dawkins, means a lot to me as a man of science. So it was really cool to get an award for memes.
Wow.
Especially after something named after a dude who was books I'm a big fan of.
Oh, I didn't know there was like lore to it. I thought you were just like really into memes, and it just like worked out till you get the meme award.
Well, I mean, the latter part of your statement's true. It kind of did just work out that way. I didn't
Yeah.
intend it. Um, it's just a title of the internet people gave me.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
I understand.
I know people are probably expecting us to talk more about sign spinning. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch gears and go back to that real quick.
Okay.
You learned the craft. I mean, at least from my point of view, you entered the scene and then you blew up really fast. Like you learned really quick. I'm assuming that has something to do with your background in skateboarding. And maybe I'm just making or connecting dots that aren't there, but I'm assuming your musical background played some role in it too, especially on the creative side of things.
Yeah, I would definitely say the musical side of it played more into it. So in middle school, I started playing drums. I joined high school band, not high school. I joined middle school band, and I became a percussionist just because in general, I like to work with my hands, and it was very cool. It was very fun to me to like bust out patterns and learn rudiments and rhythms and stuff, and just be able to get good at something. And of all the skills that like I kind of know about, drumming was the first one that I took seriously. It was really cool to like practice drumming and practice with the other guys and watch myself improve, and then be able to perform and to see the reactions of people like just being excited over banging two sticks on a drum. You know what I mean? People love that stuff. And as I got older, as I transitioned into high school, I joined drumline. Drumline was always the coolest part of the pep rallies, which is something that I wanted to do. I have a very like showman type personality, so I always want to be like in the spotlight for something that I practice because I think it's cool and I want to share and I want other people to think it's cool. So drumming was like the intro to performance and getting good at a skill and learning something. When I started sign spinning, it was like a perfect natural progression because just like with drumline, you're out there in front of people and you have to perform what it is that you practice. And the difference was I got to get paid to be a sign spinner. Whereas with drumming, it was more of just like a hobby thing. But with sign spinning, it was like I go out, I do my thing for a little while, I get good feedback, and then they want to have me out there again. So it's just like this loop of like, okay, well, I got paid for today. They might not want me tomorrow. So I got to make sure the stuff I work on today will improve what I do the next day. And then just keep going. So that was kind of like the natural progression into sign spinning, which was really, really cool.
Hell yeah. That's that kind of leads into one of the questions I want to ask, which was if you took home any lessons from sign spinning. But what you just described was personally a lesson for me, like how you can commit yourself to a craft or a skill set, and through constant practice and repetition, you don't get worse. You can only get better. So I found that the fact that you can pick up a really obscure and abstract skill that nobody would otherwise practice and make something glorious out of it, I think is something to apply to everything else. Like if you're new to something, I mean, going back to music, if you find yourself struggling, you only struggle less in the future. I mean, unless you continue to challenge yourself, of course. But it gets easier. And so that's something I wanted a lot of other spinners to realize, that's the same with managing their peers or selling contracts. If you're not really good at selling or recruiting or anything like that, just like sign spinning, you weren't good at that to begin with, but then somehow, some way, we all find ourselves on the world stage at the World Sign Spinning Championship.
We're all new only once. And then after we do it that first time, that's when we continue to improve. Like you're going to suck at everything you do. Like the first time you pick up anything, you're going to suck. You're not going to be good at it. And that's okay. Me, I'm the type of person that I get discouraged if I'm not immediately good at it. But as I've gotten older and I've just tried out more things, I've gotten used to the idea of just being new and not being good at it. Because you have to like know that if you're going to learn something, it's going to be a part of you, and that part of you has to grow. Just like every day we're getting older, we're constantly growing with the things that we invest ourselves into. Sign spinning was definitely, of all the things I've learned, probably the one that grew the most. And I have no problem with that at all, because sign spinning allowed me to do so many great things and experience so many different paths and avenues of life. Like, I would never have gotten good at video editing if I didn't do sign spinning. I would have never learned how to do Illustrator. I would never learn how to navigate cities or airports I would never learn Korean if I didn't do sign spinning.
Bro, that's a big one.
Yeah, there's so much stuff that I wouldn't be good at if I didn't start getting good at this one thing and accept being bad at it, and knowing that down the line I would improve and I would one day be better at it. Because when I started sign spinning, like, I was already like kind of like okay at it, and I started watching videos of guys that were like really, really good. Like, I watched Raph and Larry Fuller and Justin Brown and like all these like OGs and stuff, Matt Doolin. Like, I saw how good they were. And I was just thinking to myself, they've been spinning for so long. I've only been doing this for like 3 months. I know how good I can get after years of practice because I got really good at drumming. Let's see what happens if I stick to this and get really good at it. And the answer is I get to travel the world and do a bunch of like cool stuff, and I'm a better person for it. So I think it's awesome. Like, just to be able to commit to something and see where it takes you.
Yeah, well said. I just really hope that this hits a lot of other people's ears and they can see that for themselves.
Yeah, that's always what I think. And like, it doesn't matter what you do. I'm a firm believer that what is the quote? I was thinking about this quote this morning, actually, that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. So if you want to get good at something, you put in the time and the hard work, and you have to have enough. You have to be humble enough to admit when you're wrong and to change something if you're not moving ahead. Because it's very easy to think like, oh, I just suck at this. It's not for me. It fucking sucks or whatever. It's just
man, if everybody gave up when they felt like that.
You have to be fluid. And recently I started being a server. Like 6 months ago, I became a server at a steakhouse. My only job has ever been sign spinning, right? So, which is very like solitary. Just you say hi to the client, walk in, do the sign in, then walk out, and then you're on your own. You do your thing. Very, very low interaction type job. And so
almost a cookie cutter experience in some ways.
Yeah, in a lot of ways it is. And then when you go out, you kind of experiment with the sign and make it your own. Serving, on the other hand, is the total opposite, where sign spinning, you're spending most of your time entertaining yourself and just like waving to people. With serving, you're actually interacting with different people all the time, and you have to talk to them, and you have to guide the experience for them on a more intimate level than the 5 to 10 seconds or a minute long light that you get with sign spinning. And there's a lot of different ways that can go based on who you're interacting with. So it's a skill for sure. Like, I'm way better now than I was 6 months ago, but that was only with practice and like trying new things and just not getting too discouraged when something went wrong or something went unexpected. Yeah.
I'm sure the Tyler of, with 6 months of experience is doing better than the Tyler with, 10 minutes of experience.
Oh, of course. I remember the first time I had to approach a table by myself. My heart was just pounding out of my chest because it feels easy. Like, when you go sit down in a restaurant, it's cool. You got your menu and then the server comes up and they're like, hey, can I get you a drink or whatever? And it's like, we know what to do. Obviously, tell them what you want, tell them what drink you want. But when you're on the other end of that, all of a sudden it's so much more intense because all eyes are on you. It's like public speaking. Public speaking is a very scary thing. Yeah. You've got people eyes on you, and they're expecting you to guide the show. And if you don't say it perfectly, they could be like, we have to tip this guy?
Yeah. Your money relies on your performance there.
Yeah. But it's a performance-based thing, which at the core of all things I do is what matters to me. I like performance-based things. I could never do a like day in, day out, repetitive type job.
Yeah.
So it's stressful and it's hard, but you get better at it over time.
This is definitely one of the most unorthodox jobs I've ever had. And I never saw myself as an unorthodox job type of person. I always saw myself as like a 9 to 5. Let me just go in and do my thing and then come home doing the same thing every day. So it's cool that you bring that up. It's also cool that you bring up how different the two experiences are, despite them both being like public services. I was under a different impression. I totally assumed that by being a science sprinter first, that would make being a server like way easier. But I never factored in that, serving a table is like trying to spin for the same people at like a 10-minute red light. And it's like, all right,
yeah, try a 40-minute red light.
Yeah, dude, exactly. Like it just feels like you're trying to entertain the longest light ever. And you're both already kind of burnt out on each other. It's like, all right, what do I do now? Like I kind of gave you everything already.
And it's more like it's more tactful, because if you come too, there's like a balance you have to strike. If you come too much, they're like, fuck off. If you come not enough, they're like, where's our dude? So
he's lacking.
What's he doing back there?
Yeah.
It's a timing thing, which is like, it is what it is. It's cool. It's different. And like, that's what I enjoy. I'm always trying to do different things,
I've definitely become fond of the unorthodox approach. I feel like in some ways we're akin to like stand-up comedians, because it's not like a regular thing. Same thing with sports, because sometimes, as in your case, you might wake up and perform in a different city. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned the OGs a couple minutes ago, and I wanted to circle back to that and ask you what some of the different, like, what do you define as, like, what are the differences between a rookie, a veteran, and at what point do you become an OG?
Well, I would say I'm definitely not an OG. I think a rookie, like if I would first think like timeline wise, like where are we? Okay, we're in 2021. So probably anybody that started between now and 2018 is probably still a rookie moving into a veteran. From 2018 to like 2012 or 2011, 2010, like that's a veteran for sure. And anything past that, but from 2011-ish to the conception of AArrow, like that's an OG for real.
Whoa, yeah. No, that way I would. I feel like there should be a title beyond OG at that point.
Well, that's probably like, I don't know, like Godfather. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I think we might have to make another category here. I was thinking an OG could be based on seniority. Like if you've been doing this for 10 years, there's a good chance you've seen it all already. You know what I mean? But I think there should be some experiences between a rookie and a vet, or maybe even like a language, right? Like if you understand the language of science spinning, if you can communicate and like articulate a concept to somebody else and they understand it, I think you might have ascended past the state of rookie.
Yeah. Well, because that opens it up to like people who learn fast and people who've just been like doing it on the side and like don't really care too much to learn about like the true nature of science spinning. So I could totally see it like that. But I don't know, like it's difficult to determine where people are in terms of like rookie to veteran to legend to OG status. Like everyone's just kind of different.
Yeah, maybe we should just start incorporating belts like the martial arts system or something.
See, I've actually had a conversation. I've had conversations like that before about like belts for science spinners. And I think it would be a super dope idea. I don't really know how you would implement it. Well, I kind of have an idea of how you would, but it would take a lot of work, like a lot of admin work. You'd have to have like certified judges. You'd have to have a whole list like the Trictionary, but like more in depth. And there would have to be different disciplines of science spinning as well, because you've got tech and inverts as two major styles of spinning. And like if it was one side, it's like Taekwondo and any other form of martial art. It's still a martial art, but like they focus on different parts of the body. So I don't know. There's so many different ways that it could go, but like I agree with the idea of like having some sort of proof of your ability with the sign. It's just how would you do that? Like it's there's so many different ways you could do it.
What you just said with the different disciplines was super insightful. Um, I I've I'm familiar with categorizing different aspects of science spinning, like their tech game or their invert game. But oh my God, I've never thought about like comparing it to different disciplines because people's invert game, like how much time they spend upside down and how much attention they spend or how much attention to their positioning on the floor is involved. Kind of reminds me of jujitsu. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's obviously a lot of floor game. Or there's people who have really strong upright game, like Mark Montiano's upright game was massive back in the day. And since he never goes upside down, it's almost like a fighter that never hits the floor. So you can call him a boxer. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
they stay upright the whole time. That's cool.
That's the stuff that I really enjoy personally as a science spinner. And it's like I always lean more towards tech just because my history of like working with my hands and being, hand dexterity, I just think that's more fun to do than going upside down. But of course, obviously I know, I understand reality. So to be a good science spinner, I do have to learn how to do inverts and stuff, which is the only reason I can do like inverted sword slash and like the wheel of karma and all that type of stuff is because I have to have that in my arsenal if I want to be able to be considered like a good legitimate science spinner and do well at competition.
Oh yeah. I think there's certain tricks though that do more than just showcase your capacity to go upside down, right? Like having an invert is cool just to show that you can go upside down. But then there's certain inverts that incorporate other elements like risk in the case of the wheel of karma.
Right. I would say that wheel of karma is probably not a very risky trick once you like fully understand how to throw the sign, because it's the same way every time. I would think like riskier moves would be moves where you can't really see the sign the entire time.
Oh, like blind tricks.
Like blind type of tricks where you have to know the feel and you can't rely on sight.
Or you got to trust that it's going to be right here when you catch.
Yeah. Those are absolutely tricks that I can't do.
They're scary too.
Yeah, like scissor catches and like in between the leg stuff, like Jamaican me crazy. Well, I don't know if that's fully like can't see the sign or what, but like as soon as I lose sight of the sign and I'm upside down, like I just can't do it. Like it's beyond my capabilities, and I've practiced over and over again. It's just for some reason it can't click in my head, and like I think that's fine. It's not for me anyways. Like I think they're all right, but it's just not for me.
I think when you pay attention to how people invert, you can see who's doing it to show that they can and who's doing it because they're low-key a gymnast inside, right?
Right.
Certain spinners
Theo Davis. He used to be a cheerleader.
So
yeah.
Dude,
did you know that?
No, that's so now I feel like he's been cheating this whole time. Because it's like a dude doing parkour coming into science. I kills it on the inverts.
I didn't mean to like reveal the secrets, but like, yeah, I know Theo very well, and he told me that in high school he was a cheerleader, so he knows how to do like go upside down and be flexible and all that stuff. So that's why you'll see in a lot of his early stuff, he's just upside down all the time and like doing these crazy reaches. There's a picture of him that used to be like the AArrow banner of him doing the jump rope one-handed, and he's pointing at the camera and he's doing like a full-on split. That's like close to his cheerleading days because he's that flexible.
And that explains so much of his spatial awareness and just knowing where your body's at. Like that's a big one. That really connects to the whole gymnast thing I was mentioning earlier, because some dudes really go upside down totally blind, like their hand planted and they're looking at the floor the entire duration of the trick, and
they just know what they're doing.
And then there's others.
It's awesome.
I think Elijah, I saw him go upside down and then do this thing where he's like looking at what's happening up here too. And it's like, dude, that's what I'm saying. Like some people, they're doing it just because they're trying to showcase that they can go upside down, and then there's other people that can seemingly walk better on their hands than they do on their legs.
Yeah, it's insane. I didn't know, I couldn't really do a cartwheel before I started sign spinning. Like my cartwheels were pitiful, and I learned how to do it because I wanted to be good. and I wanted to go to competitions and be competent as a sign spinner. But it's crazy.
Was learning how to get inverted one of the most challenging things you had to do coming up, or were there other things that were surprisingly difficult when you started, like endurance?
I think endurance is one of those things that naturally comes over time. You have to willingly get good at endurance, and that comes with just like trying really hard on the corner a lot every day and just being sore the next day but still working and like just keep going. It's not that hard. It's just more of a marathon. Stuff that's like legitimately hard, like I don't understand what's happening with the sign, why can't I get this? For me, it's more of like invert stuff, definitely, because I just, like I was going back to, I don't have that coordination. I don't know what it is. If I go up, it took me forever to learn how to do an inverted sword slash, just because I couldn't get my legs right, and I couldn't like figure out the timing between like the swing and the bend over and the lift. Like that full body stuff for me is very difficult. But if it's just like hands and stuff, like I got it. 90% of what I can do with my right hand, I can do with my left hand. So it's no issue for me as far as like up here.
That's a big deal. Sometimes I'll try to do tricks with the opposite hand just so I know what like some of my trainees are going through. You know what I mean? Because if I can't do it with my left, then I have to kind of relate to the struggle a little bit in order to teach a little better.
Right. And that helped me with teaching sign spinners as well. Because like naturally, let's say I'm doing no handies. I'm a right-handed person, but for whatever reason, it's just easier on my left hand. And so when I'm teaching sign spinners, they always want to do it with their right hand. And I can do it with my right hand. It's not comfortable, but I can do it. So I can understand what they're going through and kind of like stand next to them and say like, okay, like copy me and do it this way.
Are you like that when you skate too? Like, can you ride goofy and regular? Do you have a problem riding switch or fakie?
No, so I wouldn't consider myself to be like a skater. I just like have a skateboard and I ride it around. But
transportation, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's mainly transportation for me. But I ride goofy and then I can do an ollie.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to timing your flip and with your invert and when to slash and everything. Speaking of tech, I feel like sometimes those things they go missed on the general audience. You know what I mean? Like there are certain little tweaks that I feel like only a sign spinner would appreciate because they have the eye for it, and they'll notice that like, oh man, he caught it in a really unorthodox position. I could respect that.
Oh, of course.
So going back to the whole timing thing, I feel like even though a sword slash conceptually it looks easy because you're just slashing,
just hopping over the sign.
Yeah, but when you factor in exactly what you were saying, the timing, the balancing, where the sign is, spatial awareness, where your legs, are you going to clip yourself on the way up? Those things I feel like they go missed. And so I think having commentators for judging would be really cool for this next competition. Don't get me wrong, Day-Day's a great hype man. It's tight. But
no, he's definitely good to be like on the floor and engaged with the audience because you need that. You definitely need that.
We were missing him in virtual comp though, and that's why we need. Yeah, he'd be cool to have like a commentator, and this would really.
Yeah, a commentator that could kind of explain why tricks are difficult, and like all the little nuances. Somebody that can like just explain it really easily to say like he caught it this way behind his back, or like usually it goes that way, but this time he brought it this way.
Yeah.
And somebody that can break it down. Yeah. Highlighting what was special about it. So then it becomes more than just like, okay, well, he's flipping it around himself. It looks cool, but like, I don't really get what's going on.
Yeah.
It's hard for us because we know what's happening with the sign. We know whether something was difficult or not, whether something, it looks cool, but it was actually kind of whack because it's so easy. Like we know, but to the average spectator, they don't. They just see where the sign goes and they don't really notice what the body's doing.
What I hate is the one thing they tend to notice is I can't read the sign. That's the worst thing they could notice.
Well, does it on like Double Jeopardy whenever that happens? Like the words spin out and then come and freeze on that.
Oh yeah.
No one complains about that.
Ever.
But
No.
for some reason they complain about the signs. I don't know. It's a type of thing that no matter where you go in the world, people will ask you about it. And the answer I always give them is, well, you're not supposed to read it while it's spinning. I'm trained to know when to stop it so that you do get a chance to read it.
Yeah. My favorite line is just made you look.
Made you look.
Yeah. So ultimately, even if I'm saying that, there's a good chance they're reading it while I'm saying it because it's frozen. Mm-hmm. Do you I know we've gone a while past, or like we've gone a good distance since your arrival at AArrow as far as our discussion is concerned, but I wanted to ask if you remember your first shift.
My first shift? Okay, yeah. So my first AArrow shift?
Yeah, well, not necessarily your first AArrow shift, but I guess your first experience in outdoor marketing, because I often see that your first shift will either make or break you, right? Like some people will have their first shift and realize, oh my God, that's a lot of eyes on me. This isn't for me. And then other people will be like, yo, that was the coolest thing I've ever done. This is the closest I've ever been to being a rapper in a halftime show. I could do this indefinitely. So I was just wondering what your experience was and how you ended up sticking it out.
Mm-hmm. Mine was a little bit of both. There's a lot of factors that went into it, but I'll start off by saying that sign spinning was part of my first jobs, which was Little Caesars. And I started that when I was 17, midway through my senior year of high school. And they told me about they called it shaker boarding, not sign spinning. It's a shaker boarding thing. And I remember, I think it was my second week into the shift or something like that. Everybody in the store has to take a turn going out to hold the sign. And then it came to be my turn. And I took the sign. They said, okay, you're going to be out there for 3 hours. You get a 15-minute break halfway through. And then, you just go hold it, whatever. I walked out with the sign and I was feeling like kind of stupid, like just sitting there holding it. Yeah. Like, man, I look dumb. Like all eyes, like you said, all eyes are on me. Like this feels weird, but I remembered my performance background. So I was like, well, if I do something cool with it, that'll entertain me. I can practice something and then maybe like more customers will come in. So I'll satisfy Little Caesars. And so that's what I did. I focused less on the outside, on the roads and stuff, and first learned how to hold the sign and like how to twirl it around and just learn some basic stuff. And then I just started showing people what I was capable of. Of course, I dropped it a lot. But yeah, roll it back to the first ever shift before I get off track. The first shift, it was basically, I just went out. I thought it was like kind of weird at first, but like I've had my music. I learned a couple spins and I thought it was dope. And I went back in the store. They were like, hey, yeah, you did pretty good out there. And I was like, what? This is way better than making pizzas. Maybe I should just do this.
Yeah, dude. I had a similar experience not between jobs, but I had a similar experience when it came to deciding which job was better, because I've done UPS, I've done fast food, and I've done sign spinning, and I don't know why, but I guess people find it fascinating that we would pick sign spinning over the other two. But I feel the same way. It's entertaining. It's fun.
I was shit at rolling the dough.
Oh.
That's the one main job they had me on inside, and I was terrible at it, and I don't like to be bad at things. So I was better at the sign. So I said, fuck it, I'm your sign guy. And every time I was out there, they got more customers. So,
but what if in a parallel universe, right? Like parallel universe, Tyler ended up ditching the sign and then ended up spinning pizza dough, like hella good. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe I'd be at like another pizza shop in town. I don't know.
Oh, hey, yeah, yeah. I was thinking like kind of like some artisan pizza, where you would incorporate tricks in the same way you incorporate tricks with advertising. But I was just trying to connect that back to what we were saying. You spend enough time doing something, you don't get worse. I know you're saying you're bad at rolling pizza dough, but hey, man, you never know. Maybe if you spend more time on it.
Maybe. I think if I was like super determined, I could do it.
I'm glad you picked sign spinning.
I am too. Sign spinning led me to do a lot of things I never would have expected.
I wanted to touch on your travels to Korea too, because
Mhm.
one of the things that I think, well, I mean, it's probably a pretty obvious challenge for everybody. It's the language barrier.
Right.
Um, was was your ability to learn drumming and learn sign spinning applicable to learning a new language? Like, did
Yeah.
did that come just as easy, or was that kind of another struggle too?
I think it was a struggle. Well, here's the thing about just like learning anything is that you find similar methods to learn things no matter what it is. And everybody learns a little bit differently. So I had to figure out what is the best way for me to learn something and how can I achieve that in a manner that makes sense to me and will do it in like a reasonable time where I'm not spending forever like doing nothing or I'm not spending forever not learning things. Like I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but it related in a way as far as like my learning strategy goes, if that makes sense. Like
Yes.
I know how to teach myself things, which was very important for learning sign spinning. And so it was very important for learning Korean as well, because there's not many Korean speakers locally in my area where I was, but I had access to the internet. So I could discipline myself and listen to podcasts and listen to like read books and practice Korean and like do all this stuff and interact here and there with the Korean spinners on Facebook. So it's more about understanding how you learn, understanding how the brain works, objectively, and then just like committing yourself to practice. And going back to that idea I talked about a while ago of investing time and letting it grow with you. Because when I learned Korean, I went to Korea first, right, for the KSSC in 2018.
Mm.
And I had an awesome time. Like this is what inspired me to learn Korean, like to begin with, is I was super fascinated with the Korean spinners anyways. I thought they were a super cool team. I always wanted to spin more with them. My first WSSC, I got to hang out with Kung and Rook. I think that was awesome because we were able to spin and learn from each other. And even though there was a language barrier, I mean, Kung can speak English pretty well, but Rook not so much.
Mm.
We were still able to like go back and forth on our sign spinning, and I thought that was super inspiring. I went to KSSC in 2018, and I had like one of the best times of my life. Like honestly, the guys there were super cool. They took me and Mark out to go eat like almost every night. We got drunk plenty of times. They showed us the city. They showed us like Gyeongbokgung Palace and like all this cool stuff. And it was awesome. But the one thing that I regretted, well, I couldn't do anything about it, but I regret it. It was regrettable because we had such a great time, but we couldn't really talk to each other. So it was mainly just like me and Mark hanging out, and then all these people just like having a good time. And we're all like, it's amazing, but we don't know exactly like how we're feeling, and we can't have like true conversation.
But you're sharing the experience nonetheless.
We're sharing
That's
the
cool.
experience nonetheless, which was great. And so what I wanted to do after that experience was I wanted to learn Korean and go back for the next KSSC. And then my goal wasn't to be fluid or any like fluent. It was basically just to be able to understand what was going on and then be able to say something if I needed to, which that entire year from January all the way until December, I like bought some Korean books. I listened to podcasts. I like subscribed to talktomeinkorean.com and like all these pages. And I put myself to a schedule and just learned enough basic Korean to be able to read it, be able to understand the gist of what's going on in conversation, and then be able to answer like if they ask me something. I might
Yeah.
not be able to answer fully in Korean, but I could answer. Like there were definitely times where they would ask me something in Korean and I knew the answer in English, but I didn't know how to say it in Korean.
Yeah.
So just the improvement over a year is mainly what I wanted to see, and it was cool. I ended up doing it.
That's a big one. Yeah, that actually touches on one of my insecurities with regards to language is that um I could speak Spanish and everything. I have a secondary language too in some ways, but I'm not so fluent in it where I would feel comfortable negotiating like sign spinning terms and conditions in another
Right.
country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel you on that one. But it's also really cool to hear that you guys were still communicating sign spinning concepts, and that
That's
to
right.
me is that's a testament that there really is a language behind sign spinning that
Of
we're
course.
definitely exploring.
Yeah, that's always been my favorite part about teaching sign spinning is I've taught spinners all in the US and I've taught spinners in Australia and I even held like a little class in Korea. And me being up there in front of like 15 Korean people and having a translator, I was still able to teach people new things because they were able to see what I was doing with the sign. And because they're sign spinners, they can understand the concept behind it.
They
And they
got
can
that
see
eye.
they've got the eye for it and they just
Yeah.
see it. They can see something new and say like, oh, I didn't know you could do it that way. And they pick up on it.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to leave a mark on these new people, despite not being able to even really speak to them.
That's tight. I'd like to learn the language enough to do the same. So the last thing I wanted to ask you about uh, was music, because there's been a couple different scenarios where music was almost considered a performance enhancing drug.
Hmm.
So I was wondering how music or what role music plays in science spinning, what you listen to, has your music taste changed? And does does whatever you're listening to influence uh, your current state of flow whenever you're spinning?
100% yes. Like I can't spin a shift without listening to music. And I've heard of people that want to say, "Oh, I don't spin with music. I need to just like hang back with the sign, me in the street, like being in the zone.
Yeah,
Like
all the
that's how
fools
I
that
get
forgot
into
their
it."
headphones.
Yeah. But in all my years of sign spinning, every time I forgot my headphone, that was the worst shift ever.
Oh
I definitely
wow.
can't get through a shift without listening to music. It's like that important to me, and it's something about the beat moving forward. It's something to listen to. It like stimulates up here, and then I can like reflect it with the sign spinning. I love to dance, for example. Like it's just something that I like to do, and having music to go along with what I'm doing, it just helps it go by so much easier, and it does influence what I'm doing to a point where like there'll be things I could do with music that I can't do without music. That's why every time I make a video, like I always have to have headphones in. Like
Hmm. I'm paying attention to that. I'm sure I'm going to see earbuds in every one of your videos
yeah,
now.
yeah, if you go back and watch most of my videos, they have earbuds in them, and the ones that don't, I don't have earbuds because I'm using my phone to record. And which
uh,
is one of the big reasons why I bought a camera, is because I wanted to be able to still listen to music while I'm recording my videos.
Yeah, you know what else is nice about having a separate camera is that your recording won't be interrupted by somebody calling you or
That's right.
yeah, it's a
Well, maybe if you're
nightmare.
popular like you, I don't get that problem.
Nah, man, I gotta be begging people to come on this podcast. Nah, but I really appreciate you doing this, man. I'm glad I
Yeah.
didn't have to beg.
No, it was awesome. I want to be a part of it. It's cool. I think it's great to have the voices of sign spinning on here, just to get to know the personalities a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like everybody sees sign spinners so often now that uh we're a real phenomenon, but I don't think people know the story behind how these people got there, how they got
Mhm.
so good, and why they ended up where they're at. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a crazy story for anybody to go from recruit to like top three in the world. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Especially in such an obscure, abstract, just really finite niche.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It definitely is a very obscure thing, and it's one of those things where if you are like a diehard sign spinner and you've been a sign spinner forever, it's a part of your personality, and it can be hard to relate to people that have no idea what that's like. But at the end of the day, we're all people, and we can all share our story. And if we can make that connection, then like that's truly what matters. But it's just a little bit harder for us because how do you explain spinning a 5-hour shift in the sun to somebody that's never really done that before, or like worked
Yeah.
really hard to land a trick to somebody that's not maybe into skateboarding or something similar? There's
Yeah. My thoughts exactly. I
yeah.
find that people who maybe play golf or basketball outside, they're more inclined to relate to what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anybody who uh would find being outside unattractive probably can't really relate to our choices here.
It's definitely a lifestyle for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, really happy to have done this. I suppose we'll do this again in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a whole bunch of stuff I wish we covered, but I know this will probably make for a good episode too.
Yeah. There's always next time.
Oh yeah. All right, Tyler. It's been real. I also wanted to thank you for hosting us during Hurricane. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was Hurricane Matthew.
Oh, I know. When y'all were in Florida and you came up to Atlanta.
Yeah. That was tight. Appreciate that.
That was
Thanks
cool.
for having us.
No, anytime, of course.
That's the other cool. That's one of my other favorite, at least one of my most favorite things about working here is just having friends in different area codes in different places. Mm-hmm. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great.
So if I go to Lost Lands in Georgia or something, I'll hit you up. But all right, dude, it's been real. I'll catch you later.
Right, man. Thanks for having me on.